Okay, welcome back. This is episode number 2, and I'm just going to read out the questions. So there were two. The first one was, how do you decide which style of counselling will work for you? In then in brackets, almost like finding your niche, but choosing cognitive behavior therapy, psychodynamic therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy. That's the first question. And then Alicia's second question was, how to pick which type of counselling you'll be good at. Sometimes we are good at something, but we don't love doing it. So, fantastic questions. Hopefully, I'll be able to remember what both of them are. Okay, so the first one, how do you decide which style of counselling will work for you? All right, let me just put this phone down now and can reverse leaving Castlemaine Mills Market, and it was great. I got a pair of jeans and a little top, so I'm very happy about that. Well, okay, it's not a little top because I'm not little anymore. I went into menopause weighing something and came out weighing something else. But that's okay. I'm just letting it go. All right. Not letting myself go, but letting the grieving go for my old body. Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's get on with the question. How do you decide what type of counselling will work for you? And she listed a bunch of different approaches down there. Look, I honestly think the easiest way to know which one's going to work best for you is to think about it in a few different ways. First off, have a think about what's going to work best for your clients, right? So, with your clients, what are they really going to need? If you've got clients that are in a complex mental health demographic, then they're probably going to need something that's perhaps a little bit more structured and something that's quite robust and evidence based. I'm not saying that other approaches can't work for people who have complex mental health, because I know and you know that they can. But in general, if you're thinking, oh, what approach should I be using here? I think it's always well advised to go for something that's structured and evidence based, especially when you're just starting out and you're becoming more familiar and you're building your experience. I think doing something that is very much a manualized approach like CBT can be incredibly helpful for you as a therapist. It can keep you calm because you don't have to worry about what are you going to say next or what are you going to do in the next session. But I think also for your clients, when they know that there's that structure, even with Gottman's structure, exactly what's going to happen each session. So I think a structured approach is really great when you're first starting out. Okay, so if you've been trained in a particular approach, use that. Don't use an approach that you've only read about and you haven't got any training in, because a couple of reasons. Number one, we should always only be working within our area of competence. This is one of my little bugbears, as you probably know, when people go and write their Psychology Today profiles and they tick all the boxes, because they've heard of those approaches, but they might not have done any additional training and they might not be competent in using them. For example, some people will go and they'll tick that they do psychoanalytic, but they've never studied psychoanalysis and they don't know the strategies and the inherent approaches that comprise psychoanalysis. So probably not a good idea. And saying that you do trauma informed if you have never done any training or you don't have any education trauma informed. And also just on that, because I want to help you out here, but when I was consulting to some of the solicitors, uh, they would speak with me when they had to prepare a case and they were going to be cross-examining a psychologist or a counsellor. And they always used to get me to look at the counsellor's resume, look at their experience, research them on Facebook. I had to research them on LinkedIn, all those kinds of things. I really enjoyed the job, but it was also kind of hard because you kind of felt like you're dobbing on a colleague. But there are some shonky people out there. And one of the things that used to come up a lot was people putting on their website or putting on their psychology today profiles that they were just ticking boxes that they deliver all these types of things, but they never had any training. And what would happen is when they went up to be cross-examined, they'd be ripped a new one, so to speak. It was really traumatic for the poor counsellor and psychologists that were on the stand. It wasn't nice for the client to hear that they'd been getting shonky therapy and paying for it. So you can imagine after the client has gone through their court case, they then come after the counsellor or the psychologist for misrepresenting their competence, right? So you don't want to do that. So when it comes to how do you know which is the therapy for you as a practitioner, I would say have a look at the different types of therapies that there are and see what really interests you and see what piques your interest and follow that. This is really important. I think the other thing that you could possibly do is in some of the courses that I run, and in some of my smaller paid communities, we have practice areas. So we've got like little breakout rooms so people can go and practice their skills. So it might be fun to go into one of those breakout rooms and experience what it could be like to be on the receiving end of psychoanalysis or CBT or a spiritual approach or something like that. And, give yourself a chance to see what it feels like to be the client, but also put your therapy hat on and ask yourself, oh, is this something that I'm really interested in? I think doing some research and having a look and allowing yourself to be guided by what you're really interested in is a wonderful way, because we know that competence is so much easier to develop when we're interested in something because the motivation's there. We love learning about it and we love applying those skills. We love getting feedback. It's fun. It's an absolute joy to do. So I think in terms of creating your own therapeutic approach, don't worry too much about it at the beginning of your journey because you're still learning and you're still finding your feet, especially in private practice. Stick with the things that are sound, the things that you feel supported by. So I would say manualized approach or an approach that's quite structured. If you're looking for resources, I know when I was first starting, I relied heavily on a book called The Mental Health Handbook, and I don't even know if it's still in production at the moment. I'm just trying to think where I got it from. There was an online store I got it. If I can recall, I'll let you know what it is. I'll put it in the show notes. But there was a psychology shop and you could go and buy books there. But this was called The Mental Health Handbook. And look, I'm going back now because it was when I first started work as a psychologist. So well, I had it before I was a psychologist. So late 90s I had it. And it came with a CD-ROM. And you could, CD-ROM. And anyway, people my ilk will know what I'm talking about. And you used to be able to print off as many copies of it. Had handouts and worksheets, it had treatment plans, it had intake, it had assessments, all those kinds of things, hence why it was called the Mental Health Handbook. And I think I paid back then, I think I paid about $100 for it, but there'd have to be an online version of it now, but maybe look at that, because I think if you've got that, you're going to feel more confident. And then what happened for me was I was using that, and because I was working for a non-for-profit at the time, I was working with the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence, and I was doing a lot of counselling. And so I was constantly photocopying my intake form. I was constantly photocopying the Reynolds Anxiety and Depression Scale, the RADS. I was constantly photocopying the General Health Questionnaire, the Beck Depression Inventory, or the BDI. My lecturer at the time used to think it was hysterical to almost wink or squint at me and call it the BDI. Bless his soul, I don't know what's happened to him, but hopefully he's doing well in the world. Uh, his name was Jeff Malloy. I really like Jeff Malloy, but yeah, some strange stuff happened with him down the end of the journey, I heard. I'm not sure, but anyway, I hope he's doing really, really well for himself now, because he was an amazing lecturer, an amazing tutor, and gave me so much confidence. But having something like that allowed me, the mental health handbook and all those forms that I was able to photocopy, meant that I could take them into sessions, and I could sit there and I could say to a client, look, I've got this intake form here, let's do it together. And we would do it together, and I'd write the answers down and sort of do it as a clinical interview, a structured clinical interview. And then what happened is, the more I did it, the more I knew how to do it. And then got to the point where I wasn't really filling out the intake form anymore. I was just kind of taking notes in a notepad. And then I just discarded all the forms. I didn't need them because I outgrew them. And I developed my own style. I developed my own ways of asking questions to get the same information that was on those forms. So I think that's just how it worked for me. Don't ever feel embarrassed taking forms into sessions with clients. It's absolutely fine for you to do that. Some clients may even have an expectation that you're filling out a form. They may be expecting that you do, and they may feel very good that you are. So don't ever be worried. I'm just saying that because a couple of people said to me, I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. So whether you've got forms in there or not is not a predictor of you knowing what you're doing in the client's eyes. So don't worry about that. But yeah, while you're just getting started, I would use an approach like that and allow yourself to find the things that are going to work for you. I can share that when I first started, CBT was all the rage. It was kind of just coming into its own. I did the first study in Australia on CBT and unemployment. And because when you do a PhD, you've got to have like an original idea. So that was my original idea. But it was really just that I was kind of already doing this work anyway at the nonprofit. And so it just felt like a really obvious thing for me to kind of do. Like, I didn't, as a little girl, I didn't grow up thinking, oh, I want to do a PhD on unemployment. It didn't, yeah, that wasn't what happened. But anyway, it's just how life takes you, isn't it? So I did that. And then what happened was I stayed doing evidence-based approaches because I was doing Medicare and work cover and TAC and victim services. And so you're required to only use those sorts of things. So it just became second nature for me to use them. It wasn't until the end of my psychologist journey when I started allowing myself, it was like so taboo. Oh my gosh, spirituality, oh, so taboo. And that's when I started exploring other types of approaches. I mean, even back in the day when Russ Harris was developing ACT, that wasn't an easy thing for him to get across the line. And same with EMDR, it was considered dodgy. And it was considered a bit woo-woo and a bit alternative and a bit new agey. It took EMDR ages to come into recognition for what it does. Same with EFT. But anyway, I think the more, just allow yourself to gather experience first. And then when you've got that experience, you will just start to feel more confident experimenting with different types of things. Now, the second question that Alicia had was about, what therapy is the right one for you when you might be really good at a therapy, but you might not really like it. So what should you do then? Well, again, it's really down to a couple of things, like what's the need of your client. If your client really needs something and you're good at it, well, it would make sense for you to deliver that. Likewise, if you're not competent in something, we don't deliver that. If you have found an approach that you really do like, but you're not competent yet, then you know what to do. And that's go and find a course, go and find a program, go and get certified, go and do your weekend workshop or, the 12-month course, whatever it is that you need to do to get competent in it, and then use that. Okay. So Yeah, there are things that I really, really love. Like, I really love hypnosis. I'm a qualified clinical hypnotherapist, and I really, really like it, but I don't use it in my sessions. There are other things that I don't particularly like, but I use them a lot. I draw upon them a lot. Um, but now, these days, I use an eclectic approach, and I feel like you kind of come into your own with that, and it happens gradually. It's not something that's going to happen for you very quickly, especially when you're just new to the work and you're new to the field. But over years of practice, what will happen is you'll become proficient in a number of different approaches. And then you'll be in a position where you can sit with a client and you will be able to match an approach that you're qualified and competent in for what the client's needing in that moment. So this is what an eclectic approach is. Sometimes when I'm with a client now, and I don't see that many clients anymore, as you know, but when I do see a client now, sometimes I might draw from, I really love Jungian work. I really love archetypes. I really love narrative therapy. I really love logotherapy. Yes, there's a place for CBT. But I read my client and I will match a tool or a technique to what's going to work best for that client. So if I've got a client that's perhaps I'm getting the vibe that they might not be into the woo, and I'm getting the vibe that they might be a little bit more wanting something that was evidence based, let's just say I'm going to draw upon evidence based stuff. But if a client comes in and they're open to new ideas and they're open to new ways of doing things, that's music to my ears, because I know then that I can trust my intuition and I will be able to very easily zig to somebody's zag. I believe that an approach is just that, it's an approach, and all approaches have the same goal, which is health and well-being and wellness. And I believe that all approaches get people to that end goal, but not every approach is for every client, and not every approach is for every therapist. Like, I know from some of the people in my world that are still in my world that are psychologists, there's no way on earth they would ever talk about inner guidance. No way on earth would they ever do that. There's no way on earth that they would ever talk about your intuition and trusting your gut. It's not going to happen with them. They're very, very focused on um, more sort of structured approaches like CBT. Do you know what I mean? Whereas some of my counselling colleagues, they're very open and, what's a new approach, and have you heard of this, and, what about vagus nerve over here, and do you know what I mean? It's like there's just this smorgasbord of different ideas, and, everyone in that little group of mine is very open to learning new things and very open-minded. That's probably the biggest difference between counsellors and psychologists. In my experience, I think psychologists tend to be very regimented, very, it's got to be clinical, it's got to be evidence based, it's got to be medical model, because they work under funding systems that require them to be working in that way, right? Medicare doesn't pay you for being spiritual. Medicare is not going to pay you to have a conversation with a client about their inner guidance and, trusting their gut. That's not going to happen. And if you accept a rebate for that and the client complains to Medicare, or the client's partner complains to Medicare that you're there doing woo-woo sessions on Medicare, that's fraud, and you have to pay that money back if you get found out. So, yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest differences. And I think as counsellors, you've got so many options for approaches that you can take and for courses that you can do. You're not locked into anything. And this is a wonderful, wonderful thing, but it can also be very overwhelming, and it can leave you feeling a little bit muddled up and confused. So for that reason, if you're new, I would say think about what you really enjoyed learning about in your course. And if there was a particular approach that really landed for you that you really like, or a particular style, work more with that. and work on that more, like really develop that. Okay. Um, but the question was, what do you do if you're really good at a technique but you don't particularly like it? I think if it's indicated by a client that they need it to get the outcome, you deliver it. But otherwise, if there's other approaches that you really are in love with and you're passionate about and you're driven by, go and learn more about those. Get the certificate, get the diploma, get whatever piece of paper you need to prove your competence in it, and then be known for the person that uses that approach, right? There are so many psychologists, for example, that deal with anxiety. And that's going to happen because anxiety and depression, like 3/4 of Australians get diagnosed with anxiety or depression in their lifetime. Anxiety and depression are common. But the approach that a psychologist must take to treating anxiety is very narrow when you compare it to the ranges of interventions and applications of theoretical modalities that counsellors have available to them that they can use. So if you've got a client that has been to see a psychologist or two or three or four and they haven't gotten anywhere with the structured clinical type approaches of, say, CBT or brief solution focused or dialectical behaviour therapy and things like that, that if they haven't got their answers from that, yet you might be an art therapist, or maybe you're a music therapist, or maybe you like Jungian stuff, you can use that. And let's see if that's going to unlock and open something for your client. You know, there are so many ways that counselors can support clients that psychologists working under certain funding bodies just can't. And that is the superpower, one of the superpowers of a counselor. Okay, by the same, what do I want to say? It's the same coin, right? Just different sides of the same coin. It's also the psychologist's superpower that they can only use evidence-based interventions. The accredited mental health social workers superpower as well, that they can only use accredited mental health interventions under Medicare and work cover and TSC and victim services or victims of crime, etc. That is their superpower because that's what they're known for. You're not known for that as a counsellor. You can be if you want to, but I don't see the point because then it's going to come down to a client saying, well, I can go and get CBT from a counsellor who's got 1 or 2 or 3 years of training, or I can go and get it from a psychologist who's got 10. So they're probably going to go and get that from somewhere else. That's why I think really allow yourself to go to the bookstore at your university, have a look at the different types of therapeutic approaches and modalities. Go online, look on YouTube for different approaches and different modalities and see, what really lights your fire. For me, I went 180 degrees out of the evidence-based approaches and over into the spirituality. It was a very dramatic shift. It was a very dramatic jump. It felt good. It felt right. All of those things for me in the moment as I was doing all of that and as I was going through my own transformations, and the business went through its big transformation as well. But now that that's all happened and it's behind me, I've calmed down a lot. I'm no longer saying, hey, soul, 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 soul. I'm no longer saying spirituality, spirituality. It's now more easy. It's now more embedded. And I don't feel like I need to be everywhere telling everyone, hey, spirituality this, soul that. No, I feel like that's behind me now. That was the start of my journey. That was the start of my growth. And that was my own naivety and my own, I don't know, just kind of, me having this big break out of the evidence-based stuff and breaking away from it and feeling like a kid in a candy store. Like, imagine those children who never have a lolly and then one day they find 20 cents and they go to the milk bar and suddenly they get lollies and it's like crazy. That's what it was like for me. breaking out of the regimen and the strictness and the harshness of psychology, moving into coaching and therapeutic work through counseling. It was like, yes, this is me. Finally, I get to be myself. Finally, this is what I'm doing. My business is called Private Practice with Soul. Everything's soul, 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 soul. You're going to go through something like that on your journey as well. Oh my gosh, it's a full moon. It's a full moon. It's a full moon. It is amazing. Oh my gosh. I'm driving through the country. I'm near Mount Franklin. I'm actually driving through Mount Franklin. The sun is setting behind me, and there's whole striations of pinks and purples and gold and like this vibrant orange. But in front of me, so in my rear vision mirror, I've got this beautiful, beautiful sun it's setting right behind me. But in front of me, off to my left and sort of up a little bit, kind of where I look when I'm thinking about connecting with my higher self. I always feel like my higher self is, I don't know, if I look ahead and imagine a clock, I feel like my higher self is at 11 and always see her up there or experience or imagine that she's up there. And that's right where the moon is right now. And it looks amazing. I think we must be due for, I don't know, is it nearly solstice time? I have to check. But definitely get the candle out tonight. I've got a really nice decking where I'm staying. So I might even go out on the decking, and do some journaling and do some intention work. This is really good. Full moon is fantastic because it is a wonderful time to put light onto your shadow stuff. So this is a great, 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 great time for those of you who want to work on limiting beliefs, obstacles, challenges. I don't like the word blocks and I try not to use it. But, why am I stuck in a pattern? So tonight I will sit down under the moon on my decking with the kangaroos and the vineyard, and I am going to, and a blanket and my Syrah, my new favorite red wine, and I'm going to write about the pattern that I'm trying to break now around this income issue that I'm dealing with. So it'll be a good night for me to sit down and look at what pattern am I in, how can, what needs the light to be shone on it now, and what is ready for me to unpack. And so I'll sit down tonight and I'll do that after dinner. Oh, what a fun, 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 fun night. I can't wait. Okay, so I've totally digressed, but I hope, Alicia, that that's answered both of those questions. I know you've got a couple more and I'll answer them for you in the next episode, which is on Saturday. But right now I'm just driving back to the accommodation and I feel really calm. I'm also kind of really excited though, because I'm thinking in my mind about, I'm tuning into the manifesting stuff I was speaking to in the last episode about. I'm really allowing my imagination to imagine that it's real for me. Not to say one day I will be having this result. So as you know, for me, it's about how do I increase my income so that I can still meet medical expenses and because they're just increasing every day. But my income hasn't been because it didn't need to, but now it does need to. So I will sit down tonight and I'll think about that. And in my imagination, I'm going to start believing that it's already happened, believing that this is my current reality. And I'm going to have to work on allowing myself to acknowledge the lag between what's in my mind and what's showing up in the world. And that's okay. And I really want to spend some time allowing myself to feel it in my body. What's it going to feel like when I know that I can easily and comfortably pay for these new expenses and I'm not going to have to stress or worry or put pressure on myself, things like that. You know how we put pressure on ourselves? It's just not necessary. So I want to really tune into that. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to be feeling like, wow, it's just so exciting to have this money coming into the business now. I don't think it's going to be that for me. I think it's more going to be like, that relief, release, that calmness, that peace, that things settling back down. I think that's what it's going to feel like. So I want to let my body feel what it feels like to be calm and feel what it feels like to be at peace. And while I'm letting my body feel that, I want to pay attention to where do I feel peace in my body? What does it feel like? What do I notice is different? What does it feel like in my hands? What does it feel like in my legs, in my belly, in my back, in my face? What does calm feel like? What's that experience of calm? And I want to start becoming more aware of how that feels like. And I think it's hard to know where you feel it in your body when you're calm. But I think maybe a good place for me to start would be on my breath. So even if I just notice what my breathing looks like when I'm calm and when I'm at peace and when I'm at rest, and maybe that's going to be the thing that I focus on the most. And I'm going to try and do that as I'm living my new reality in my imagination. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but I know you know what I'm talking about. You've got to think about it and imagine it first, and then you bring it to life. So this is what's happening. This is where I'm at. And yes, I'm like kind of excited to go home now and do this inner work. I'm really excited. This shadow work, I don't know how I just didn't realize about the full moon, but I did notice last night it was so bright outside. I should have realized, but I thought maybe there was a light on somewhere. That's how bright it was. But yes, I'm looking forward to going and doing that work. I'm looking forward to having some dinner. And I'm looking forward to making it home in one piece because it's actually now 20 past 5. And as I'm driving along, there's signs everywhere saying beware of kangaroos, like high risk area and stuff like that. So a bit nervous that maybe a roo might jump out. So I'm scanning left and right while I'm driving along the country road. And yeah, I'm just about back into the heart of town. I don't think there's anything I need to pick up. I think I'm all good just to go back home now and get started doing that work. Oh, actually, I might go and pick up a chicken, a hot chicken, because it's very cold. It's 7 degrees outside. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to put the fire on. So you should see me now with the fireplace. I'm queen of the fire. Um, I got this fire going, and just the sound of it crackling and popping and the smell of it, it was like so good. And I was really proud of myself that I figured out how to get it going. So now it's like every day I'm happy that it's cold because I know I can make myself warm with this fireplace. It's so nice. I mean, obviously I've got heating as well, but it's a bit special, isn't it, to have an open fireplace? Well, for me it is because I don't have one at my house. So this is a bit special. So I like to do things that are out of the ordinary when I go away, and it's not ordinary for me to stoke a fire. So yeah, I'm going to go home. I'm going to make the pyramid with my kindling. I'm going to put the newspaper under my little pyramid of kindling. I'm going to set it alight, and then I'm going to put, one or two, probably just one, chunky log on top of that, and I'm just going to let it go. It's going to be so much fun. And I don't know if I mentioned this. Oh, I didn't, because it only happened yesterday. But I just wanted to share with you too that yesterday I went to a shop in Malden, and the shop was called Much Ado. It's a kitchen shop. And I was in there for Mum because she wanted, it's a new type of sieve or sift, I don't know which is the correct word. Sorry, I'm not a kitchen goddess, I'm a business goddess. um, but apparently you can put flour into it. It's like a tube, and you push the bottom of the tube up, and that tells you how many grams you've got or something. Anyway, so I had to go in there for that. And I was the only one in the shop. And then a little while after, another lady came into the shop. And then, long story short, she mentioned that she grew up in Frankston and then in Mount Eliza. And my ears pricked up, and I said, hey, so did I. And we started talking, and turned out we had some shared experiences. I don't know if any of you are from the Mornington Peninsula, but there's a place there called Oliver's Hill. And when you were a little kid, your parents used to take you to Oliver's Hill. It's dangerous, like it's been sectioned off in parts and everything now, but they weren't back then. And I remember that my mum and dad with my nana used to take us in the Ford station wagon. I think it was an XC station wagon, and they used to park down on Oliver's Hill, right? It's a cliff with a straight drop, basically. And we used to eat $2 minimum chips in the car, and it was myself and my five younger brothers and sisters, so there was eight of us all in the station wagon, and you would feel the car tipping and rocking because of the wind, and there wasn't a barrier or a little fence then, so cars could get right up to the edge. My dad used to love getting the car so close to the edge that you couldn't see the ground anymore. It was so scary. But anyway, it turned out this lady had a similar experience with her parents, and we were having a bit of a joke about it. And then turned out that she now works for a non-profit. And I said, hey, I was working for a non-profit, and we had all these similar experiences, and we were talking about all our stuff and everything. And then the lady behind the counter, she started talking with us as well. And would you believe the three of us were there maybe an hour or 90 minutes? I don't know. And I was so loving it, which is huge for me because, as you know, I have autism. I don't like to say high functioning, but I don't need high levels of support. Mainly, I've got sensory stuff, so things I can't touch, and I don't like to be where where my attention is being divided. Like, I find it difficult. My mum listens to the radio, talkback radio, and she'll have the TV on, and she's trying to hold a conversation with me, and I don't know which way to look, and I have to get up and turn everything off. I can only listen to one thing at a time, so I get overwhelmed by that. But I can go somewhere where there's white noise. Like, I can go to the Mind Body Spirit Festival, and it's just white noise. But if there's other noise and it's like competing for my attention, I get overwhelmed real quick. But anyway, so we're talking about, I forget why I told you that. There was a reason why. Sorry, I'll come back to it if I can recall. But anyway, so we started talking about all of that, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, that's what I was going to say. So one of my things is that I don't I don't function well in friendships and things like that. I'm not a good friend in inverted commas because I always forget to call people. I tell people I'm going to, do, I'll meet them somewhere, and then I cancel at the last minute because I'm just not good socially. And if I do go out, like even if I force myself, if I commit and I say, you're going to go, you're going to go, you're going to go, I go there and I just spend all my time thinking, how can I get out of this? I need to be by myself back in the car. But I didn't feel like that when I was with these two ladies. All the conversation just felt so easy, and they just accepted me, and I didn't have makeup on. My hair was a mess. And, I'm not in my fantastic clothes. I'm in my leisure clothes because I'm on holiday. And you know what I mean? It was just nice to feel that level of acceptance and for the conversation just be flowing. And then it was so disappointing when we all had to part ways. But before that happened, we all swapped phone numbers and we made a commitment to catch up again. And I said, well, I'm coming back in August uh, because, I've got the significant birthday thing happening in August. So I said to them, I'm going to come back in August. And these two ladies live in different parts of the world as well. Well, in Victoria, obviously, but anyway, and so they said, yes, okay. So we're making plans to catch up in August. How much fun is this going to be? And we're going to have like a couple of days together, and we're going to have like lunches and dinners. And do you know what? Even like last night, we were all connecting with each other on Instagram and, in the DMs, and we swapped phone numbers. We've been messaging today. And I just feel like these women, I don't know. It's just like the universe put us all together at the same time, at the same place. And yeah, so anyway, then when I was driving home, I was happy. And then I thought to myself, oh, this isn't going to be good because now what's happening is, you're going to feel uncomfortable and you're going to start bailing on people and you're going to do all this. And it's just easier if you're alone and by yourself. But I thought, no, 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 no. that wasn't how I felt with these two. These two are different. And while I was sitting there last night watching Farmer Wants a Wife, which whole other story. I mean, how lovely is Farmer Joe? Like so, 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 so lovely. It kind of made me for a moment think maybe I want to be a farmer's wife. But no, 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 no. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt, been married 3 times, divorced 3 times. I'm not interested in that anymore. As I said, it was a fleeting thought. But I thought I could do farm life because they were all sort of saying, oh, well, you're going to get bored. Are you going to get bored on the farm? Because I've got to actually go on the farm and do the work and you're going to be in the house. And some of the girls were like, yeah, I probably would be. But I would not be heaven for me because I love to be alone. And as long as I would have said to Farmer Joe or whoever, I would have said, do you know what? Go and do your farm work. That's totally fine. Just make sure I've got really strong Wi-Fi and I will do my own stuff from home and be happy. Like, it would have worked so well for me and then just reconnect in the evening. But anyway, so forget why I just told you that little story as well. There was a reason. I can't remember why. But anyway, oh yeah. And so I was watching Farmer Wants a Wife, and then when the commercial came on, I saw my new tarot, and I thought, yeah, I'll do a little reading. And guess what cards came out? The first one was, so I set the intention with the reading to just show me what I needed to know about these, ladies in my life, these new friendships. And I drew 3 cards. The first one was the Lovers, the second one was the Queen of Swords, and the third one was the Fool. And this was a really, 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 really positive reading. So what I'm taking away from it is the what's I going to say, the Lovers is about coming together. It's about partnership. It's about trust. It's about faith. It's about union, all those kinds of things. I thought, okay, yeah, good, I'm following. The second card was Queen of Swords. So Queen of Swords is all about truth and ideas and honesty and all of that. And I thought this is good because maybe this is going to be like, as a group of 3, we're going to be all very honest with each other. Like the Queen of Swords can also be like brutally honest and blunt. And I thought maybe that's good. Or maybe this card represents one of the 3 of us. Maybe there's going to be one of the 3 of us that becomes known as that person that's always honest. Whether you want to hear it or not, she's going to give it to you. So I thought that was interesting. And then the last card was the Fool. And that really represents to me new beginnings. It's the start of the major arcana, actually. And isn't it interesting that there were 2 major arcana cards in that reading? One was the Fool and the other was the Lovers. So the Fool is the start of the major arcana, and the major arcana is believed to indicate significant events that happen in your life, whereas the minor arcana are more sort of day-to-day little things that aren't as significant. But the major arcana are like, oh, heads up, need to be aware of this, keep an eye out, be alert, all those kinds of things. So the fact that there were 2 major arcana cards in a 3-card spread, that is also pretty unusual, but very, very positive. So the Fool card for me, I'm looking at as a new beginning, start of a new journey, which it is, hello, having some innocence about it, being playful, like a return to that sort of childlike innocence and state of, oh, I wonder what's going to unfold with all of this. It's that sense of anticipation and, excitement and, yeah, just allowing it to kind of unfold. So I thought this was a really, really beautiful spread. And, yeah, I just feel like so good. But now I've arrived at my accommodation and I'm getting a bit nervous because um, it's very active in terms of kangaroos and I don't want to get bailed up out the front of my house again. So I'm going to finish there for now and I'm going to hop inside, excuse the pun, and hopefully be able to publish this episode. Now, I know the one that I recorded for you just a couple of hours ago is still uploading. It's just because where I am at the moment in Spa Country, there are definite dead areas for reception. And those of you who live in Victoria, you've been here, you know what it's like. Sort of Daylesford, Hepburn Central, you're fine, but go out a little bit and it's like a hit and miss. You just don't know. And the other thing too that I learned when I trekked Everest was, I'd say to my Sherpa, am I going to have Wi-Fi today? And he'd say, well, it depends on the clouds. So if we didn't have clouds on the mountain, then we had Wi-Fi. If there were clouds on the mountain, we didn't. So that's a little way to know whether or not you're going to have Wi-Fi as well when you're in the country. If there's a lot of cloud coverage, the Wi-Fi tends to drop. So it looks pretty good now. So anyway, hopefully that first episode is finished uploading while I've been recording this, but I'll go inside. Oh, I didn't get my, here we go. Hang on, you might lose me for a second while I just start the car up because I forgot to go and get my chicken. Okay. Okay, hopefully